And as I said earlier in the show, last night when I was diving into Saints salary cap stuff, it's pretty interesting. It's very dense. I think I'll give you the raw information, but then at the end I'll kind of try to boil it down into some general talking points that I think can let you know at least where the Saints stand, kind of in a broad stroke sort of fashion. But to me, the bigger takeaway in doing this is that I'm truly starting to come to grips with the fact that we sit on a new era of Saints football, right? Or at least a new era of the New Orleans Saints as we know them. And what's kind of wild about that is sometimes when you get familiar with something, you start to take it for granted. And when I think about the Brees Peyton era, I think about how long this team has been good, I definitely started taking for granted. I mean, it's been the formative years of my life. Like, I don't feel like I've ever really known anything but the Saints being awesome and having an incredible offense led by Drew Brees. And you'd be like, well, T-Bob, but I mean, what were you? I mean, in 2006, right? If that's when we're starting this thing, how old are you? Yeah, look, I was 16 years old, so like, sure, I didn't grow up with him being good, but I started watching the most football after I turned 16 years old, right? Like that, like around that time is when you really start to get into it and have been into it every single year. And what's wild about that is every single year since I was 16 years old, entering every NFL season, I thought the Saints should win the NFC South. They didn't win it every year. They have won in the last four, which is incredible. But I felt that they were capable every single year. And it wasn't just a blind fanaticism. There were objective arguments to be made that they could win the South every single year. It started when I was 16. I'm now 32. So we're talking over a decade and a half of championship relevance, of dominance. As we said, there are those younger than me who quite literally maybe have never known anything else. And so all of this just reinforces the point that, what are the next steps for this New Orleans Saints franchise? As you prepare to head into the great unknown, how do you try to navigate this void? What turns will you make? What decisions? What tact? I mean, look, you have a great captain at the helm with Sean Payton and his council, right? The power structure of New Orleans remains very solid, even with some of the departures. But the hero of your people, right? The leader of your armies, we think at least, is gone. And the question is, can you maintain success? Can you maintain control? How does this play out? Do you fail in the short term before rising once again? Do you kind of carry that banner forward and not take too much of a step back? Do you fall and continue falling till everything crumbles? I mean, can you, let's just look at what has happened to teams in the past when they lose their franchise Hall of Fame quarterback. Can you pull off the masterstroke, the dream? Can you go Favre to Rodgers? Can you go Manning to Luck? Or will you be like the Patriots this year? And look, the Patriots make it good again immediately, right? I would never doubt Bill Belichick to improve very fast. Time is on his side. He's going to remain in New England. He'll have a chance to get that situation back. But there was a huge fall off this year. Will you be like the Rams after Kurt Warner left? We're sure, look, Mark Bolger put up some interesting numbers and stuff, but it was just a steady decline into irrelevance until that young wunderkind Sean McVay showed up to save the day. Will you be like the Cowboys after Aikman? Never really championship relevant again, right? I mean, look, you had Quincy Carter have a nice year, go to the Pro Bowl playoffs, I think, one time. Tony Romo had some interesting years, but not the heights that you once occupied. Or, God forbid, will you be the Bills after Jim Kelly? Are you going to be cursed to wander the desert for 40 years in search of that playoff promised land? I mean, that's the type of situation that you're dealing with here. That's the knife's edge that everything balances on. And look, I can't see into the future, right? The ocean of possibilities to me is very dark, very stormy, but it doesn't matter. It is time to set sail. And the question is, which tack will the Saints take? And this is what it really boils down to, is I see two main schools of thought, if we wanted to be very reductive here. Do you try a full reset with the salary cap, right? Fully own up to all the debt that you've been kicking down the road for all of these years and start fresh? Do you maybe accept that, okay, look, we're going to let some of our bigger names go. We're going to prioritize rebuilding our war chest, rebuilding our resources, swallow a down year next year, and see where we go from there? Do you do that? I think the $175 million cap certainly makes things interesting. I think it maybe pushes you a bit more this direction than would have been originally expected, right? Because right now, the Saints are $95 million over the cap. Now, they can make up that gap with the same thing that they've always done, converting salaries into signing bonuses, prorating them over the life of contracts. It ties you to these players longer, but it lets you get on that $95 million cap. If this cap was what it was supposed to be pre-COVID, and it may be 185 now on the cap. We'll see when it gets made official. But pre-COVID, you were looking at a cap around $215, $220 million. It's a pretty stark contrast there. Anywhere from about 40 to 45 million different in what you planned for versus what the reality of the situation is. So I don't know. Maybe the COVID cap pushes you more towards that full reset sort of direction. Like I said, owning up to the debt next year and rebuilding resources for the future. Or if that's one school of thought, one camp, do you try to continue to spread out the damage, to mitigate the damage, spread out the money? As we said, it's definitely tougher with the COVID cap, but it's not impossible. And let's be painfully clear, right? There is a lot, there's a very logical argument to be made that the Saints should do just that. Off the top of your head, boys, what's the Saints' record without Drew Brees the last couple of years?
8-1.
8-1. I mean, come on. Right, like without the guy who we are lamenting leaving, without your Jim Kelly, your Kurt Warner, your Peyton Manning, your Brett Favre, like whatever Hall of Fame quarterback you want to throw in there, you're 8-1 without him. So it shows how strongly you've built the rest of this roster. That's also something that shows if you want to remain relevant, if you don't want to take that step back, if you're not willing to deal with that potential step back and losing some of your best draft picks and players next year, then maybe you do start to prorate these contracts. You do start to kind of spread things out. And it's not impossible given the talent you have on the roster. But if you do pursue this path, like almost everything else in football, it's all going to trace back to one position, right? It's all going to go back to quarterback. And they need someone to step up at quarterback. I don't know if that's Jameis Winston. From what I've heard, it's a mixed bag. I think they like his potential. I don't know that I've ever heard of him doing anything in practice or camp that would maybe justify putting all your hope in Jameis Winston to be that guy. And then with Taysom Hill, we've seen what we've seen, right? Certainly, he's in the competition. But is he good enough for you to justify trying to continue to carry forward this debt and remain relevant in the short term as maybe you figure things out at the position long term? Or do you look at your quarterback situation and say, you know what? I don't know if I actually believe in either of these guys being the guy that we're looking for. And if that is the case, combined with the COVID cap, I think you have to put some serious thought into whether maybe you try to hit that reset button. We'll see. Time will tell. As will become apparent later in the show when we do the more in-the-weeds salary cap breakdown, I do think that this is a choice, right? You will read a lot of articles, and this is why I love Nick Underhill and New Orleans Football, Mike Tribble, and everybody else doing this great work, right? Because you will read a lot of national articles that will simply see the Saints are $100 million over the cap. They've got X amount of dead money on Brees. They've got this, they've got that, and they're going to tell you that, well, it is impossible for the Saints to manage this situation. Nothing is impossible for Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley, okay? They're cap magicians. As you can see, as you will see, they can use the same strategies they used in the past once again if they choose to do that. And so that would be my question to you, the audience, is what should the Saints do? Should they try to remain good in the short term, or do you take this opportunity post Drew Brees where you're going to get a little understanding from the general public, I believe? Like, you're going to get a little leeway. If you go out there and you don't have the best year next year because you chose to kind of, reset, if you will, I think the public will be on your side for the most part. So if you're Saints leadership, what are you doing? It's a fascinating question. Let me know your chances. Let me know your answers in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat, 1045, 100.3, 94.7 ESPN. When we get back here on Off the Bench, it is time for Munchies. So go ahead, keep getting your Munchies questions in, #Munchies, and we will ask LSU Executive Chef Michael Johnson all of them and then some. So stick around here on Off the Bench. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe below. You want more great Saints content? We got it all here on Off the Bench Overtime. Check out these other videos, share with your friends, and let's grow the Who Dat Nation together. Who Dat?